Foxborough faithful, buckle up because what's happening in New England might be way bigger than a few random off-season headlines. There's heat building on defense, major smoke around the offense, draft signals flashing in the distance, and when you put it all together, it feels like one thing. The Patriots are not just filling out a roster, they are building an identity. And when a team starts stacking signs like this, the fan base needs to lock in before the rest of the league catches on. So hit subscribe, smash that like button, and stay with me to the end because today, we're connecting the dots on a Patriots project that could absolutely explode in 2026. Let's start with the defense, because if there's one thing that already feels stamped all over this new era in Foxborough, it's that Mike Vrabel wants to build a team that is tough, physical, and downright punishing on both sides of the ball, but especially on defense. And that brings us to a story that should have Patriots fans on high alert. According to Adam Schefter, defensive lineman Christian Wilkins fully intends to play this season, and even though he's still working back from the foot injury he suffered in 2024, the interest around the league is already real. The report says 26 teams have reached out and are waiting for him to be ready. That's the fact. Now here comes the bigger read. If Wilkins really is on track to return and gets to pick his next home, the Patriots cannot afford to sit back and watch from a distance. Not because they're desperate at the position, but because they're not. And that's exactly what makes this so dangerous for the rest of the NFL. You've already got Christian Barmore and Milton Williams expected back in 2026. You've already got a defense that leveled up in a huge way in 2025 under Vrabel. You've already got a unit that went from forgettable to feared. So now imagine dropping a player like Wilkins into that mix. At that point, we're not talking about a good defense anymore. We're talking about a defensive front that can wreck games. Wilkins would not be just another body. He brings production, run-stopping power, pass rush juice, and legit high-level experience. And there's another detail Patriots fans should not ignore. With guys like Kalavan Chason and Kairos Tonga gone, there's room to add depth and violence up front. So even if this isn't a desperate need, it makes perfect sense as a move built on ambition, not necessity. Now yes, there's risk. The contract matters, the rehab matters, and the concerns about locker room behavior from his Raiders stint can't just be brushed off like they don't exist. But if Vrabel looks at the full picture and believes the culture in New England can bring the best out of this guy, then I'm going to say it plainly. There is zero reason not to make that call. And you know what really makes this story crackle? The possibility that the Patriots are already one of those 26 teams. Because if they are, that tells you this front office understood the message from last season loud and clear. This defense can be the emotional engine of the 2026 team. Drop it in the comments and don't hold back. Would you bring Christian Wilkins to Foxborough? Or would the off-field questions make you pass? Now we flip to the other side of the ball, and the temperature does not cool off one bit, because the Patriots offense is still screaming for a player who can change the ceiling of the entire unit, and the name that keeps storming back into the middle of the conversation is A.J. Brown. And we need to separate this carefully. Fact: New England added Romeo Doubs this offseason. Fact: Stephon Diggs was released in March. Fact: according to Mike Florio on Tom Curran's show, there is a belief that the Eagles could be almost forced to move A.J. Brown before the 2027 season because of future salary cap pressure. And on top of that, the cleanest window for that move would likely be after June 1st. That does not mean a trade is done, but it changes the whole board. Because when you combine the Patriots' obvious need with the Eagles' possible financial timing, this stops feeling like some random fantasy and starts feeling like a real market scenario. Not guaranteed, not imminent, but real. And right now, when people talk about the most realistic destination for Brown, the team that keeps circling back into the spotlight is New England. So let me ask you this. If you're running the Patriots and you believe Drake May needs a true alpha target, do you sit on your hands? Or do you start building the entire offense around that possibility right now? Because that's the part that makes this so massive. A.J. Brown would not be a cosmetic addition. He would be a complete reset for the offense. You're talking about a physical, dominant, all-pro caliber receiver who can own third down, bully the red zone, and command double teams every single week. That changes the playbook. That changes the value of every other receiver. That changes how defenses line up. And most importantly, it changes the ceiling of your young quarterback. But there's another ticking clock here, the draft. If the Patriots truly think Brown could become part of this project, that absolutely impacts how they approach the board. Do you spend premium capital on a wide receiver right now? Do you wait? Do you protect other needs? That uncertainty can reshape the whole plan. And that's why this story still has so much juice. This isn't just about a big-name player, it's about direction. It's about whether New England is going to go get a ready-made WR1 or keep trying to piece this room together one layer at a time. If you want the Patriots to stop playing patchwork at wide receiver and finally go get Drake May a true #1 target, hit that like button right now, because the voice of the fan base matters in moments like this too. Now I want to hear from Patriots Nation. If A.J. Brown really becomes available after June 1st, would you pay the price to bring him to Foxborough? And this is where things get even more interesting, because right in the middle of all this A.J. Brown noise, another draft clue popped up that might be bigger than it looks on the surface. The Patriots have shown interest in Missouri wide receiver Kevin Coleman Jr., and the detail that jumped off the page was Tony Pauline's report that Elliott Wolf was extremely high on him. That's the fact. Coleman put up 66 catches, 732 yards, and 1 touchdown in 2025, and he also brings versatility as a slot receiver and return man. On paper, he looks like a day 3 prospect. Not exactly the kind of news that usually shakes the room by itself. But in the right context, this becomes a signal, because when you look at Coleman's profile, the first reaction is immediate. Doesn't this guy overlap pretty heavily with what the Patriots already have in DeMario Douglas? The role similarity is hard to miss, and when a front office starts raving about a player who, at least on paper, looks like a version of someone already on the roster, the fan base should start connecting dots and asking whether there's a second layer to the story. Could this just be the Patriots doing homework and adding options? Sure. Could it also mean bigger changes are brewing inside that receiver room? Absolutely. And that's where this report gains real weight in the bigger picture. If the Patriots are tracking players like Coleman while still being tied to bigger outside possibilities, then the most logical read is that the front office does not want to enter 2026 relying on one single answer. Maybe the plan is to attack the position from multiple angles. Maybe Douglas becomes movable in the right scenario. Maybe they just want more speed, more depth, more special teams juice. The truth is, interest in Coleman by itself does not confirm anything. But inside the full Patriots puzzle, it sure looks like one more sign that the receiver room is far from settled. And to me, that is the loudest message of all. The Patriots know the offense still needs a true identity. They know Drake May needs dependable weapons, and they know the wide receiver room is still very much under construction. When a major decision maker in the building gets that excited about a prospect with a very specific role, that usually tells you more about the team's plan than it does about the player alone. So here's the Foxborough read. Kevin Coleman Jr. may be less about Kevin Coleman Jr. and more about what the Patriots still intend to do at wide receiver. I want to hear from the Foxborough faithful in the comments. If the team drafts Coleman, do you see that as depth or as a sign that a bigger move might be coming? Now hold on tight, because if the Patriots really want to take a serious offensive leap, maybe waiting around for an opportunity to fall into their lap is not enough. Maybe they have to attack the draft like a team with fire in its veins. And one recent mock put exactly that kind of move on the table. New England jumping from pick 31 to pick 18 to land Oregon tight end Kenyon Sadiq. The projected deal sends picks 31, 95, and 125 to move up. And just the idea of that kind of swing is enough to split the fan base right down the middle, because it touches two things that always ignite debate in Foxborough: bold investment and draft value. Here are the facts. Sadiq's stock exploded after a blazing 4.39 in the 40. He posted an elite athletic profile, and he's even been compared to Trey McBride in terms of style and upside. That is not small-time praise. A tight end with that kind of burst, movement, and ceiling can become the centerpiece of a modern offense. And when you remember that the Patriots leaned heavily into big personnel last year, this stops sounding like a luxury and starts looking like a structural fit. If the system wants to live with multiple tight ends on the field, then the position cannot survive on role players and blockers alone. But here comes the storm cloud. Sadiq is a freak athlete, no doubt, but the production against ranked teams raises real questions. Outside of the big USC game, the numbers came back to earth in a hurry. That doesn't kill the prospect, not even close. But it does force any front office to ask the hard question: are you buying a future nightmare matchup weapon? Or are you buying an incredible athlete who still has to prove he can bring that same force when the lights get hottest? And then there's the price tag. Because as tempting as it sounds to climb from 31 to 18, that kind of jump probably costs more than this mock suggests. By draft value logic, the real price may be significantly steeper. So the argument is not just, is Sadiq good? The real argument is he so transformational that he justifies burning major resources? I'll tell you exactly where I land on it. If the Patriots truly believe this guy can become an elite weapon for Drake May for years to come, then this is exactly the kind of aggressive gamble that can change the future of a franchise. Sometimes stacking extra picks feels safe and smart, but it doesn't raise the ceiling. Hitting on a rare piece does. That's the lightning bolt. That's the move that changes the weather. So sound off in the comments. Would you trade up aggressively for Kenyon Sadiq, or would you rather keep the picks and build this offense more patiently? Now step back and look at the whole picture. A defense that could get even more terrifying. An offense circling a true star. Signs that the wide receiver room is still shifting under the surface. And a possible draft day strike to accelerate Drake May's rise. None of these moves alone guarantees anything. But together they look like a blueprint. They look like direction. They look like a franchise that has started thinking big again in Foxborough. And that is exactly why this fan base has every reason to be fired up without losing its edge. So now I want to hear from Patriots Nation. Which one of these moves would change the team's ceiling the most in 2026? Drop it in the comments, hit the like button, and subscribe to the channel.